Hi, this is Christina with the Sisyphean Journal, and we're looking at the possibility that within the near future, the Supreme Court will actually overturn Roe versus Wade. And okay, first of all this means is that it goes back to the states. Some states have what they call trigger laws in effect, where abortion will become illegal as soon as Roe v. Wade is overturned. Others have laws that are somewhere in between. But some states like California and New York, it will be status quo. You want it dead, you got it dead. In New York, even after it's born, you can get it made dead as long as you start the dead baby making in the abortion facility. Then it doesn't matter. Baby comes out, you can finish deading it. But the abortion lobby is going to try to generate a corpse. That sounds like a horrible thing. And please understand, I'm not talking about ordinary pro-choice citizens. I think if the average pro-choice citizen knew what the abortion lobby was really about, they would be so revolted. It would just be horrifying, pro-choicers. If you really knew what these people were up to, you'd be horrified. So the point is that they have everything in place already. I can guarantee you they do. Because you can look at how they've responded to things in the past that they could use. So what they want more than anything else is a dead woman. And they are not above doing things that will increase their chances of getting a useful dead woman. Okay? Now, a useful dead woman doesn't even necessarily have to be one who died from an abortion. They used that young woman, I can't remember her last name, but her first name was Savita in Ireland. Her doctor mishandled a miscarriage she was having at 17 weeks. He didn't give her antibiotics. It was an obstetrical malpractice case. But because Savita's husband said that she had asked for an abortion, they turned that whole into, well, he refused the abortion and that's why she died. He could have done an abortion at that point and she would have died anyway because the infection was already there. Okay? He had already failed to provide her with care. Whether they did an abortion or not wouldn't have changed the raging infection that killed Savita. You have the Becky Bell case here in the U.S. Becky Bell was a teenager who lived in a state that had parental consent laws. She looked into traveling out of state to get an abortion. She looked at possibly making an adoption plan. When she died, she had brochures for adoption agencies in her purse. Her best friend Heather said that she was actually thinking about adoption, but she got aspiration pneumonia. She threw up and she got some of that vomit in her lungs that caused pneumonia. And while she was dying of the pneumonia, she miscarried. And the medical word for miscarriage is abortion. Her parents saw the word abortion on the autopsy and thought that she had gone out and had either an illegal or self-induced abortion. The abortion lobby found out about this, and they looked at that autopsy report. They knew that Becky had not undergone an induced abortion, full stop. But there was no need to tell her parents that, not when they could stand them up in front of microphones and tell this story about how their daughter supposedly died from a botched abortion when the abortion never happened. Okay, so whether an abortion actually happened or not, the important thing is that they're going to be able to blame it on the fact that in whatever state there was whatever restriction on how readily a woman could get an abortion. Now, there's going to be different approaches they're going to take based on how the woman died, okay? You know, and as long as abortions are happening, women are going to die from abortions. It's inevitable, as the abortion lobby is so fond of saying, all surgery has risks. Even in cases like Vanessa Preston, who went to Curtis Boyd, you know, if you grant that he meant well doing the abortion, he and his staff, they had an emergency plan in place. They followed through on it. They did everything right, but they just couldn't save her. That was an actual all surgery has risks. Not every abortion death is like, Kermit Gosnell's patients or the women that we see dying typically in American abortion clinics, okay? So if the woman dies from a perfectly safe legal abortion, or even one where it's not such egregious malpractice that there's prosecution for it, they're just going to minimize the death and wait for it to blow over, because that's not the kind of death they need. If she dies from a really quacky legal abortion like Carnamaya Mongar or Carolina Gutierrez, then they're going to do their gymnastics to, it's all the anti-choicers' fault because of these regulations. They forced the woman to go to this quack who was only operating because we fought the safety laws, but let's not pay attention to that. If the woman dies from a politically useless illegal abortion, again, they're going to kind of ignore it. There was a young woman named Chris Humphrey who decided she had an abortion at a Planned Parenthood, and she felt like they were really treating her disrespectfully. So when she got pregnant again, she wanted to do a safe, natural home abortion. So she drank pennyroyal tea, and Chris's mother warned her that she thinks this is an ectopic pregnancy. You need to go to a doctor. You need to stop with this home abortion business. And Chris's mother was right. It was an ectopic pregnancy, and it ruptured. And that constant pennyroyal, it wasn't that, enough pennyroyal to kill the baby would have necessarily killed Chris. But the fact that she kept drinking it day after day after day did damage to her internal organs, and she wound up dead. So somebody who sought out an abortion because, she kind of, the granola muncher, they're not going to use that. What they're hoping for is a nice, gory, back alley abortion, like the Rosie Jimenez case, where she did actually go to a criminal abortionist. And I'm going to cover this in a little bit more detail because it tells us how they work, okay? In 1976, the U.S. passed the Hyde Amendment, which meant that you could not use federal funds to pay for elective abortions anymore. And predictably, the abortion lobby went into their hand-wringing and arm-flapping and keening from the rooftops that this was going to force women to resort to unsafe, illegal abortions. Didn't go to any trouble to say, this is going to deplete the abortion funds we have in place for poor women. This is going to make it really hard for clinics like Planned Parenthood that offer sliding scale abortions. No, they will be forced to reach for the rustiest coat hanger in the closet, even if they have to go to a dry cleaner to get a coat hanger because coat hangers are plastic nowadays. Okay, they're going to be working hard, just like they did when the Hyde Amendment went into effect, to pound into both women's heads, your only choice is going to be a dangerous abortion. Only choice. And kind of pound into the public head that that's women's only choice. Okay? So they're going to do that. That's what they did when the Hyde Amendment came down. And then they waited to get their corpse. Now, in the meantime, women were dying from safe legal abortions. The Hyde Amendment right up until Rosie Jimenez's death. And right afterward. And they keep dying, but we don't see those. Or like Shrek said when Snow White was there. Dead broad off the table. Okay? So they were waiting for their corpse, just like they're going to wait for their corpse now. On October 3rd, 1977, Rosie Jimenez died at a McAllen, Texas hospital after she went to a local midwife for an illegal abortion. Now, the response of the abortion lobby was a little short of euphoric. Okay? Look at this! We've got a corpse. It's all Henry Hyde's fault. No. There was a pro-choice investigator who deserves a lot of credit. Her name was Ellen Frankfurt. She wrote the story, Rosie, the Investigation of a Wrongful Death. She actually went down to McAllen to look into it. And, I forgot to point out, one of the really interesting things about this is that the Centers for Disease Control were really quick to get information about Rosie's death into the abortion lobby's hands. They didn't release it to the pro-lifers, but boy, they made sure their allies in the abortion rights movement had it. so that they could pump up their PR machine. Okay, they're ready now. There's computer files to make posters, blog posts, flyers, tweets. All they're waiting for is whatever story they can cram in. If they have to lie like they did with Becky Bell or with Savita, they'll lie. If the facts, as long as you kind of edit them carefully, like with Rosie, they've got it ready. It's ready to go. Her body's not going to be cold. Whoever this poor woman is that gets killed, they're going to be out there waving signs before her body's cold. Okay. At any rate, Ellen Frankfurt went down to McAllen, Texas, and she did an investigation. And she learned, first of all, that Rosie had already had 2 abortions at taxpayer expense. And what this did was, first of all, it taught Rosie that it was the taxpayer's responsibility to pay for her abortions, not her responsibility, not the baby daddy's responsibility. It was the government's responsibility. It kept her from finding out how much abortions actually cost because she never had to write the check. She had no idea how much a legal abortion cost. I lost my thought. Well, thanks to the efforts of the abortion lobby, Rosie and her friends and relatives did know that there were no more free abortions. Okay? Now, Rosie's regular doctor flat out abandoned her. When he told her she was pregnant, he didn't refer her to a pro-life center where she could get help to have her baby. He didn't refer her to Planned Parenthood for a sliding scale abortion. He just contented himself saying, sorry, no more free abortions. So, he didn't seem to really be looking out for his patient's best interest, did he? Now, Rosie's cousin brought her to a lay midwife in McAllen who charged $120 to perform an abortion using an obsolete technique. They put a catheter into the uterus. It used to be fairly normal to do them this way, but by the time Rosie had her abortion, this was obsolete. So, one of the things that really caught Ellen Frankfurt's attention was the sliding scale abortions at Planned Parenthood were $130, $10 more than Rosie paid for that illegal midwife abortion. The day before the abortion, Rosie had spent $8 on a cake for a friend, and she had an $800 scholarship check in her purse. She could have afforded a purportedly safe legal abortion that was totally not out of her reach. But she wasn't given that information. Because if she had that information, she wouldn't have had the illegal abortion. She hadn't had the illegal abortion. She wouldn't have died the kind of death that they could use politically. Okay? So we need to keep in mind that they are getting ready for this. They've got all the machinery in place. They've got their connections in the health department. They've got their connections in hospitals. They're going to know about any woman whose death they can use. Excuse me. Like I said, they're literally going to know before the woman's body assumes room temperature, because they've got people who are ready to tell them. It's just like they were tipped off about Savita right away. They were tipped off about Rosie Jimenez right away. They've got people who are going to tell them. The pro-lifers are going to get caught flat-footed because we don't have people in those places who are going to leak information to us and say, look, the abortion lobby is going to take this death and they're going to turn it into, oh, what a horror that we overturned Roe v. Wade. So what we need to do is we need to be countering this narrative of women will have no choice but to resort to dangerous illegal abortions. First of all, sorry, dry from all this talking. First of all, there's pro-life pregnancy centers all over the place that will pull out all the stops to help these women. They do it all the time. Why do you think the abortion lobby doesn't want women to know about them? Because that's a lost customer. Who do you think's donating to the abortion lobby? It's abortionists. No women climbing on the abortion table. No money to donate to these organizations. So we need to make sure that women know that they have options. And that includes perinatal hospice for women who get an unfavorable diagnosis later in the pregnancy. With perinatal hospice, the woman gets hooked up with a woman who's gone through a similar experience. She can make a birth plan to spend the maximum time with her baby. And very often these women find out that the prognosis was wrong or the diagnosis was completely wrong. And the baby either isn't in as bad a shape as they thought, or there's nothing wrong with the baby at all. So with perinatal hospice, there's actually still a possibility of having a good outcome. Whereas with abortion, you're just guaranteeing the worst possible outcome. So we need to be aware of that. We need to be pushing it. We need to be talking about the fact that these resources are there. And we need to call the abortion lobby out when they start with women will have no choice but to. No, you guys have organizations set up where the whole point is to get her on that abortion table. You'll raise the money to get her onto the abortion table. You'll provide a ride. You'll give her a place to stay while she's there. You guys have done this before. You're really good at making sure the abortion happens, and you're going to do it again. Hopefully, we'll be able to reach the women first and spare them from that. But again, they're trying to get a woman killed. They're going to know about the dead woman before we will. We need to be prepared.